Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Halloween. And tomorrow, Feliz Día de los Muertos. Así que hoy me vestí soy Harley Quinn.
Oh, wow.
¿Y tú? ¿De qué te vestiste? José Requena.
José Requena, yeah. The character.
So, good afternoon, everybody. Like I say, I'm Rosa Esquivel. This is Jose Requena, our organizer in Pilsen Alliance, and we are a non-profit organization that fights for social justice. And we try to be involved in policy as well, to push for policy and transparency and accountability for public officials as well. So, how are you today, Jose?
Oh, doing great. As always, working for Pilsen Alliance is hard work, but it's always very rewarding.
Yeah, so one of the main things that we concentrate on is about housing as a human right, of course. But also, gentrification has many issues, and there are many things that are interconnected with each other when it comes to gentrification. It's really complex. And there is a lot of things that come to it, when it comes to gentrification. And we were talking about how it affects a small business and small business owners. In Pilsen, I don't know if you heard, we have some data that there are several small businesses that have been closing down. Mm-hmm. Correct? I don't know if you have some of that information.
Well, a lot of legacy businesses in Pilsen that have been there for decades have been shutting down, and new businesses have been coming in. That in itself is not gentrification, but this is the result of hyper gentrification, aggressive gentrification, and gentrification is a catch-all term. So let's talk about what is actually happening. Massive developments, luxury developments. Working hand in hand with the governmental units to ensure this higher tax base gets built up, and then small businesses that have been there for decades did not have the upward mobility or accretion of liquidity to stay in the neighborhood they've been in just as long as maybe leading political figures there, and they have to shut down. I don't know if you want to talk more about the new businesses that are coming in?
Yeah, so basically, when we talk about businesses coming into the neighborhood, these are people that are actually coming in looking for an opportunity to make profit, and of a neighborhood that right now is being very commodified.
It's commodified.
It's commodified, and I don't necessarily believe that newcomers, new restaurants that are coming in are necessarily bad. The problem is when the small businesses are being affected because they cannot compete, or I don't want to say compete, but they're not well prepared to maybe, I don't know, like you say, have enough funding to remodel their spaces, or basically, or also they have to increase the prices of their food. A lot of this stuff we have to think about as a way of. These are families that own those businesses. So when these families have to close down their businesses that have been there for years and years, right? I think that is a problem. That is a family that is gonna have to start all over again, in another place, or we don't know. Each case will be different, right?
I mean, it's a huge asset from the community that someone that came from the community that has had decades of roots in it has to uproot themselves and leave and end their endeavor, and it's seen as, purposeful, and people do take it personally when you look at other neighborhoods like Andersonville, for example, that had a huge Swedish population, had a huge vibrant and personal character, and it's been developed into one of the coolest neighborhoods in the city. But it's maintained so many of its old bookstores, of its old. Do we even have like good bookstores on the south side? We have good ones in Pilsen, but they maintain some of their old legacy bookstores, some of their old legacy bakeries, restaurants, diners. By design, by the governmental units there listening to the community, by listening to people mobilizing the community, help rationalize that out. So we know that that's possible. What we have an issue with is that why is it not possible in Pilsen? It does seem like it's a bit more overt to get rid of any kind of cultural imprint that is there at the moment with something that is, as you said, much more commodified and marketable and commercial.
Yes. So I just wanted to let you know that if you want to get involved in Pilsen Alliance, you can come to our office, which is 1744 West 18th Street, Chicago, Illinois 60608. If you have any questions, you can call us at 312-243-5440. You can go into our Pilsen Alliance webpage, pilsenalliance.org, or you can look for Pilsen Alliance on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. So let's get back to this, right? So when it comes to business development, I feel like we have to see the whole thing as one community, right? As being inclusive with each other, as being a good neighbor to the community, right? Which includes getting involved with the people in the community, helping them to thrive as well, offering jobs to the people that are already in the community. Also, for example, cooperating with organizations in the community, maybe having even like some type of discounts for people that are already in the community, things like that, right? I don't know what else. What type of ideas would you have as well? Like,
I mean, we ask a lot of the same basics from businesses that come in. Would you hire local? Will your prices reflect a lot of the price points that some of our older community members have, that have been here for decades? A lot of people have been getting by in Pilsen on fixed incomes, and that's seen as a problem by capitalists. But we think it's a sense of community and ownership of the space for the character that it has. But small businesses could be subsidized. People wanted an SSA, a special service tax area for businesses, but that really just benefits the people that can pay into it. New developments, new businesses coming in, if they're not going to be a small coffee shop that can welcome people. Although I hear people are sick of coffee shops in Pilsen, but if they're not going to be a communal space for existing residents, if they are there, not interested in hiring locally, not interested in engaging, with the local population to cater to that market. And overtly see any attempt to have those discussions as antagonistic, that's problematic for any kind of, rationalization of community, which I think is purposeful by developers. Communities are a sense of place. It's why we have less of a village design now across rural America, and we have spaces to consume or to work. And Pilsen has been an area that was meant for work that became a space for community because of the families that work there.
Yeah, and I feel like we also, in a global scale, right? We can start thinking about not only thinking about the rich and powerful, right? We have to think about the whole picture where people come together as community and help each other, right? Because there's a lot of I think there is a lot more productive when you start a conversation with a community, when you talk to the community. For example, the youth, which our youth are people that are very committed to our community. They are leaders. They are people that are very smart, intelligent, young people that are getting educated, and they are leading conversations about this, about they are trying to get people together and bring them to get into conversation. So when we have invited people to those conversations, we need to be there. And because if you're not there, then how are you going to know exactly what the community wants and the community needs from people, right? We cannot just be one-sided.
Right. And
we have to think about inclusiveness.
Right.
And we have to think about the solutions, how we can come together. For example, creating a new chamber of commerce, right? That will help all the businesses in the area. That will be something that will be like really helpful. And creating we were talking about how small businesses don't have sometimes Medicare, right?
Right. I mean, that's been an issue with the small business community. People do not have enough upward mobility, getting paid the minimum wage right now. Health insurance still being tied to mostly employers despite the ACA, and now everything that this administration do go back to that old status quo. And then you have this city hall, catering to Jeff Bezos, catering to Elon Musk, catering to a billionaire class. Not long ago, they were catering to Donald Trump, trying to get him to build a casino in Chicago. This is not a city that really courts or values small business as they should. As much as they claim that they do, they don't seem to have a long-term goal for maintaining or keeping small businesses. A lot of work went into this administration to create new small businesses. But what we're seeing is that older ones are losing out and are having been forced to leave, and there's no programming or help coming their way. So people in our generation are working on different models for what that would look like. A Chamber of Commerce in Pilsen, working with a lot of the older existing businesses, trying to incorporate the new businesses to offset, some of, the ecosystem, as it were, and really looking at it, as Rosa said, as a community space, as one unified space for that unit of government to rationalize out, cooperative economic models.
Yes.
Are something that are inserting themselves into everyday conversation in Chicago a lot more by the day, and hopefully, they've been encroaching in a lot of spaces around the country, but it's exciting to hear it in Chicago where we could have programming and municipal help to create cooperative spaces so that small businesses can radically undercut the cost of so many of their overhead, whether it's urban farming cooperatives providing the produce or foodstuffs to local small businesses, or coffee cooperatives kind of creating, a unified ecosystem across the city of roasters and importers and growers or whatever. And you can do so much more if you put these pieces together and get them to cooperate and not to compete. Because if you get them to compete, that's when gentrification, that's when this process of overdevelopment, purposeful, aggressive development is violent. Because you are forcing people that the government has purposely decided will be losers, will have no upward mobility, will have no future for their children, and you're going to make them compete with the Silicon Valley class that is coming in to buy condos and dine at Moni Burke's, and that's awful. That is violent. That is your government perpetuating violence on you as a low-income citizen, and then telling you live in a capitalist country, so get used to it, and then complain when you upset a fundraiser. It's untenable.
Yeah.
It's unsustainable,
Yes.
and it needs to be changed. It needs to be
Yes.
changed. Otherwise, the people that are insulated in power, which are very few, their relationship with the masses that are exposed to the violence of the system, they're going to clash the way they've always
course.
clashed in the city. And we really work hard to avoid that because we're a social justice advocacy
Yes.
organization, and justice is about harmony.
Of course.
And that's what we fight for.
Justice is about love.
Yeah.
We think about it that way because it's a love for all human beings. We want equality and inclusiveness for everybody, for the working class that have built a community. And that's important. It's important to keep those families that have actually come here to, and they made the American dream, as we call it, right? They became entrepreneurs. They opened their own businesses. But what type of message are we sending them by telling them, this business, it's more worth it than your business, right? So it's supposed to be about equality, about inclusiveness. And if we are going to talk about inclusiveness, we have to keep the small businesses as well, right? Inclusiveness means everyone, not just the rich and powerful. That's what inclusiveness is.
Yeah.
It's about, so when we talk about Pilsen, for example, we want a community that is how to say the word, that is thriving and is flourishing, but it's affordable for everybody, for the people that have invested their lives there. I mean, if there are people that want to sell and move, let them be their choice and not because they're being pushed to sell, right?
Yes.
If there's people that want to, because there's also like harassment from inspectors. We're hearing a lot about that.
Sometimes landlords will use rehabbing the building as an excuse to evict people that are living there at the time. And there's a lot that can be done, and I do want to be fair to the local alderman. He's been there for over 20 years, and it's you're going to have a mixed record. You're going to have some good things on your record. You're going to have some bad things on your record. But one thing that he has been consistent on, and it's not foolish on his part, is to stay very close to the power structure of the city, which is the mayor. Essentially, M. Daley, everybody knows. He was here for over 20 years. He controlled so much of the purse strings. You stay close to that power structure if you want to do something good for your community, was the old logic. And I mean, there's only so much you can fault an alderman for that logic, for that. But what I will say is that in the last 8 years, under new administration, we have seen across the city, the working class, the community, the communities of Chicago, have to leave in droves, have to leave in the hundreds of thousands, get absolutely no support during a financial crisis and get bailed out, while the banks did get bailed out, saw themselves less and less reflected back in this organization, meaning to suggest they saw some of it in M. Daily, which is just letting you know where we're at right now. And for better or worse, the local government unit in Pilsen stuck close to their old strategy, and they got on board with this global city plan. Chicago's always been a capitalist global city, but this was a global city in the sense of attracting global citizens, belittling any kind of respect that this administration had for the citizens of Chicago currently had, the residents that they currently have. And that got reflected back in the neighborhood, which is why you've seen this increase in anti-gentrification work in the last 8 years in Pilsen and the city. And you see that this mayor doesn't even want to run on his old record. He's running away from the work that he's done. He will not run on what he's done for this city. What does that say about the many, many, many aldermen that have been completely complicit, aligned, and jockeying to be leaders in that agenda that this mayor will not run on again?
Yeah. And this is why organizing at a grassroots level is important, right?
Yeah.
People, regular folks from the community like you and me, you know, just trying to fight for what is fair. Trying to keep when we talk about diversity, we want to include everybody. We want to include from the elotero, the tamaleros, you know, we want to include the people that are out there, you know, hustling in the cold.
Yeah.
You know, these
Yeah.
are people that are, you know, struggling, but they try to make to meet ends, you know, at the end of their month.
Yeah.
They're trying to pay their rent, they're trying to pay their bills. That's what it is about.
Yeah.
We just want what everyone wants, you know,
Life.
which is basic human rights, which is
And dignity.
housing, education, dignity. That's all
Clean
we are.
environment.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. That's the kind of issues that we are pushing for. Taking action in City Hall.
Yeah.
And also policy-wise.
Yes, and I will say this, you know, we get a bad rap about, you know, protesting and doing this and that. The alderman has sat down with us and has agreed of a lot of the ordinances that we've been trying to push for affordable housing have a lot of merit to them. And we hope that those conversations continue and that he will get in support of the Chicago Housing Initiative ordinances of development for all and homes for all so that we have a better 5-year housing plan for Chicago to have a lot more affordable housing, to retain a lot more of the people that have historically voted in this neighborhood, to keep them in their homes.
So Pilsen Alliance has gotten a referendum on the ballot this.
Yes, and we
What
will
is
be.
it about?
Please vote November 6th if you are in East Pilsen, in 3 precincts of East Pilsen, where the Paseo Trail will be going, where 18th Street and Peoria lots are being explored. We just don't feel that the current community process for new developments is transparent, inclusive, or equitable enough. The Pilsen Land Use Committee is made of the heads of a lot of organizations that do good work in and of themselves, but those heads meeting with the aldermen to act as gatekeepers for new developments is not the way that new development should happen in the neighborhood. So we would just like a process a lot like what they're doing in the 35th Ward with community-driven zoning,
open
community-driven budgeting, and ideally what the end goal for us is developing a model of community-driven development.
Yes. So thank you very much. And don't forget to vote on November 6th for replacing plug.
Replacing and reforming. Vote yes.
So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, and happy Halloween again.
Halloween.
Take care.